She couldn't see a single face in this world. But somehow, 4 of the most powerful men in the entire beast kingdom would give up everything, just to be the one she reached for in the dark. The first thing she felt was pain, not the dull, distant kind that fades when you blink it away. This was sharp, bone deep, the kind of pain that grabs you by the chest and squeezes until your lungs forget how to work. The second thing she felt was cold, hard ground beneath her, damp soil pressing into her cheek, the smell of earth and bark and something wild, something she had never smelled before in her entire life. And the third thing she noticed, darkness, complete, total, absolute darkness. Am I dead? Her name was Leon Yue, 23 years old, graduate student. She had been crossing a street in the rain. She remembered that much. Headlights, a horn blaring too late, the sickening sound of impact, and then nothing, until now. She pushed herself upright slowly, palms pressing into cold, damp soil. Every muscle in her body screamed in protest. Her arms trembled, her head spun so violently she nearly collapsed again before she even fully sat up. Okay, she told herself. Okay, think. She reached up and touched her face. Both eyes were open. She could feel her lashes against her fingertips, but there was nothing, no light, no shapes, no shadows, just an endless, suffocating black that pressed against her eyes like a blindfold stitched to her skin. Blind, she was blind. A sound escaped her throat, something between a laugh and a sob, because this was insane. This was absolutely insane. She was a doctoral candidate who had spent 3 years studying neurological disorders, and she could diagnose herself right now with terrifying precision, complete bilateral vision loss, likely from trauma to the occipital lobe. Prognosis doesn't matter when you're sitting in dirt in the middle of nowhere. She pressed her hands flat against the ground and breathed, slow, deliberate, in through the nose, out through the mouth. Her psychology professor had called it grounding. Feel what's real, name what's real things, cold ground, rough bark somewhere to her left. She could hear it creak softly in the wind, the smell of pine and something else, something animal and musky that made her instincts prickle. The distant sound of insects she didn't recognize. A sky above her, she couldn't see it, but she could feel the open air, the slight movement of wind against her skin. And then memories. They hit her like a wave crashing over a cliff. Not her memories, someone else's, a girl, young, barely 17, small frame, perpetually hunched shoulders, a face that had learned very early not to show emotion, because emotion only invited cruelty, a name whispered like a curse by everyone around her, Lian Yue of the Ash Sparrow clan. Lian Yue pressed both palms against her temples as the memories flooded in, fast and fragmented and devastating, a world where humans and beasts had merged centuries ago, where bloodlines determined everything, where your beast compatibility score tested at birth, decided whether you were worth feeding. Like where females were valued only for 2 things, fertility and fighting ability. The original Lian Yue had scored 0 in both, born blind, born weak, born into a clan that saw her as a mark of shame. She had been tolerated, barely, until her 17th birthday. And then the clan elders had gathered, reviewed her scores one final time, and made a decision with the casual efficiency of people throwing out broken furniture, useless female, no compatibility, no value, cast out. Her stepmother had packed her belongings into a single cloth sack. Her stepsister had watched from the doorway with barely concealed glee. Her father had not come to say goodbye. The clan elder had pointed toward the forest border and told her not to come back. She had walked into the forest alone, and somewhere in the cold and the dark and the hunger, the original girl's body had simply given up. That was 3 days ago. That was when Lian Yue, the real Lian Yue, the one from a rainy street and a doctoral thesis and a life that apparently no longer existed, had arrived. So, she said quietly to no one, I'm in a beast world, in a dead girl's body, blind, abandoned, alone in a forest. She paused. Fantastic. She would have liked to cry. She genuinely would have. but the body she was in was dehydrated to the point where tears felt like a luxury she couldn't afford. Her throat was cracked and dry, her lips were split, her stomach had long since stopped growling and settled into a hollow, dangerous silence. She needed water, she needed food, she needed shelter before whatever was making that distant, musky smell decided she was an easy target. Use what you have, she told herself. Anna, you're blind. Not helpless. She had always been a practical person. It was the thing her friends teased her about. Leon Yue cries at movies but never at real life. Because in real life, she went straight to problem solving. Grief was for after the crisis was handled. She extended one hand and found a tree trunk immediately to her left, solid, wide. She pressed her back against it and sat very still, focusing everything she had on her remaining senses. Sound, wind moving through branches, overhead, the insects, strange, rhythmic, not quite like anything she recognized. Water, faint, but there. A trickle somewhere ahead and to the right, maybe 30 meters away. Smell, pine, soil. The animal musk, stronger now, but not close, not yet. Touch. The bark behind her was rough and deeply grooved, old growth. The ground was soft with fallen needles. No rocks within immediate reach. She spread her fingers wider and felt a stick, thin but solid, about a meter long. She picked it up. It wasn't much, but it was something. She was just pushing herself to her feet and slowly, carefully using the tree for balance, when something happened that she was completely unprepared for. Light. Not real light, not anything her broken eyes could produce, but somewhere in the center of her mind, like a window opening in a dark room, a faint luminescence appeared, and within it, text. She froze. Leon Yue stared at the panel floating in her mind for a very long moment. Then she laughed, actually laughed, a short disbelieving sound that scattered a nearby bird into startled flight. Of course, there was a system. Since she had read enough transmigration novels during late-night study breaks to know that this was practically mandatory. Arrive in New World, receive mysterious system, proceed to somehow become the most important person in said world, despite starting with absolutely nothing. She had always rolled her eyes at those novels. She was no longer rolling her eyes. Soul sense, she murmured, testing the words. I can feel what's real around me. I can sense intent. She couldn't see faces. She couldn't read expressions. She couldn't navigate the visual language that everyone else in this world would use automatically, unconsciously, constantly. But she could feel truth. In a world built on bloodlines and power and deception, she could feel truth. For the first time since she had woken up in the dirt, something in her chest settled. Not hope exactly. Something quieter than hope. Something more durable. I can work with this. She turned her attention outward, letting the soul sense unfurl carefully, the way you'd open a hand you'd been holding clenched for too long. It was disorienting at first, like a new sense she had no framework for. But within seconds she began to feel it, the tree behind her, old, rooted, completely indifferent to her existence. The birds overhead, small emotions, quick and bright, mostly just hunger and alertness. The water source, to her right. Not a living thing, but she could feel the life gathered around it, and insects, something small and warm-blooded drinking at the edge. And then behind her, further back, moving slowly, something large. She turned her head instinctively, even though turning her head did nothing for her vision. 3 of them, maybe 4, moving with the deliberate, unhurried patience of predators, who already knew their prey had nowhere to go. The emotional signature coming from them was not hunger exactly. It was colder than hunger, more calculated. They've been tracking me, she realized, the original body's scent. 3 days of wandering, weakening, leaving a trail. The stick in her hand suddenly felt very small. The growls began then, low, rolling, designed to freeze prey in place. Leon Yue pressed her back against the tree, gripped her stick, and thought very clearly, day 1. And I'm already about to be eaten. She tilted her chin up. Absolutely not, she did not get eaten. That felt important to establish. The growling had gotten closer. 3 distinct sources. Encircling with the practiced patience of hunters who had done this many times before. Leon Yue had stood with her back against the tree, stick raised, soul sense stretched to its limit, tracking every shift in their movement. And then she had done something that surprised even herself. She had growled back. not a human sound. Something that came from the memories of the original body, some deep muscle memory of a girl who had grown up in a beast clan, who had absorbed the language of dominance and submission the way children absorb grammar, without ever consciously learning it. The sound that came out of Lian Yue's throat was low and guttural and said very clearly, "I am not prey, I am not worth the trouble." Two of the creatures had stopped immediately. The third had hesitated. She felt its uncertainty, its recalculation. And then all three had retreated into the dark. Lian Yue had stood there for a full minute after they left, shaking from head to toe, before she allowed herself to slide down the tree trunk and sit on the ground again. "Okay," she had whispered. "Okay, good, fine, that was fine." She had found the water source by following sound and soul sense, 32 steps to the right, slight downward slope, a narrow stream cold enough to make her teeth ache. She had drunk carefully, not too much, the way she knew you were supposed to after prolonged dehydration. She had found berries nearby. She couldn't see their color, but her soul sense told her the small creatures drinking at the stream's edge had been eating them, and what didn't poison a small, warm-blooded animal probably wouldn't kill her immediately. Probably. She had curled up against a large root stick across her lap and slept in short, anxious increments until morning. Morning brought warmth on her face and sound. Birds, wind, and voices, human voices, close. She heard them before they saw her. 3 people, based on the footsteps, moving without particular caution, which meant they knew this area well. The emotional signatures coming through her soul sense were layered and immediate. Boredom, mild curiosity, and underneath both of those, something sharper, opportunistic. There she is. A girl's voice, young, close to her own apparent age. The curiosity sharpened into something uglier. Lian Yue turned her face toward the sound and said nothing. She had learned in 3 hours of being in this world that speaking first from a position of weakness was almost always a mistake. Footsteps approached, stopped about 2 meters away. "It's the ash sparrow cast out," a second voice said, male, older. The boredom in his emotional signature had shifted into something that felt like the specific satisfaction of someone who has found an easy target. The blind one. Didn't think she'd still be alive. "She looks terrible," the girl said. There was no sympathy in it. It was the same tone you'd use to comment on a piece of furniture that had been left out in the rain. The third person said nothing. Lian Yue felt them. Older female, radiating the particular cold calculation of someone already running numbers in their head. "Where did you sleep?" the calculating woman asked. "Here," Lian Yue said. "In the open?" A short sound, not quite a laugh. "Miracle you're breathing." Lian Yue said nothing. Footsteps moved closer. She tracked them carefully, the young girl circling to her left, the older male staying put, the calculating woman coming directly toward her. Lian Yue tightened her hand on her stick without making it obvious. The woman crouched down in front of her, close enough that Lian Yue could feel the warmth of her presence. "You have anything on you?" the woman asked. Her voice was almost pleasant. Her emotional signature was not. "No." "That's a lie." The woman reached out and took Lian Yue's stick before she could react, a quick, practiced motion, the kind that came from doing this before. "You had a pack. Clan issue. Standard cast-out kit." Her hands moved to Lian Yue's side, found the small cloth bundle Lian Yue had woken up clutching. "There it is." "That's mine," Lian Yue said. Her voice came out flat, so she didn't have the energy for outrage. "Was yours," the woman said cheerfully. The bundle was opened. Lian Yue heard the sounds of its contents being examined. Flint, useful, dried meal strips. 3 of them. She hasn't touched them. Interesting. Small blade. A pause. Worthless female. Didn't even know she had a blade on her. The young girl laughed at that. Lian Yue's jaw tightened. She knew. She had found the blade by touch the previous night and made a deliberate choice not to reach for it against the predators. Not because she didn't know it was there, but because a blind girl with a small blade against multiple large predators was worse than a blind girl who bluffed with body language. But explaining that would accomplish nothing. She said nothing. And the bundle was repacked, minus the flint and the meal strips, and dropped back into her lap with casual dismissal. The woman stood. Take the blade too, the young girl said. Leave it, the older male said. Bad luck to take everything from a cast out. Clan rules. The girl made a dissatisfied sound, but didn't push. The three of them left without another word. Lian Yue sat very still for a moment. Then she found the blade by touch, closed her fingers around its small handle, and held it in her palm. One less thing to lose next time, she thought. Learn faster. She followed the sound of the voices at a distance, careful, quiet, because voices meant people and people meant settlement, and settlement meant she might find something more useful than a stream and stolen berries. The soul sense proved invaluable for navigation in a way she hadn't anticipated. She couldn't see the path, but she could feel the life around it. Insects concentrated near vegetation, small animals scattering from footsteps, the particular hollow absence of sensation that meant open ground versus the dense layered feeling of undergrowth. She moved slowly. She moved carefully. She only fell twice. The settlement announced itself through smell before sound. Cooking fires, animal pens, unwashed bodies, and underneath all of it, the particular mineral smell of gathered beastkin. The emotional landscape shifted dramatically as she approached. Dozens of signatures layering over each other, a complex tapestry of daily life that made her soul sense ring like a struck bell. She stopped at what felt like the edge of the settlement. Open ground, our voices moving in multiple directions, the particular quality of sound that meant buildings nearby. She had barely stopped when a voice called out, "Another one?" That's the ash sparrow blind girl. A different voice, recognizing her immediately, or recognizing the original body. Thought the clan cast her out 3 days ago. Did she walk here from the border? A third voice, incredulous, more footsteps, more people stopping. Lian Yue felt the crowd accumulating with a particular sensation she recognized, the specific quality of attention that precedes collective cruelty. She had felt it before in the original girl's memories. It had a weight to it, a heat. "What's your compatibility score?" someone called out. Not a question, sent a demand. 0, Lian Yue said clearly. No point in hiding it. The laughter was immediate and widespread. "Yo, 0! The young male voice was delighted, and she walked in here like she has somewhere to be. "Blind and 0 score," someone else said. "How is she even alive?" "What clan would take a 0 score female?" another voice asked. The question was addressed to no one in particular, the way you'd comment on a stray animal wandering into your yard. She's worthless. She can't breed, she can't fight, she can't even see where she's going. More laughter. Lian Yue stood in the center of it and kept her face completely still. "Count them," she told herself. "Count the signatures. 12 people within immediate range, 2 moving away, a not interested or already late for something, 10 staying. Of those 10, 6 are just entertained, no real malice. 3 have mild opportunistic energy. One felt different, older, and standing slightly apart from the crowd. The emotional signature coming from that person was cold and entirely focused, not entertained, not cruel for the pleasure of it. Calculating in the same way the woman in the forest had been calculating, but with more authority behind it, more weight. That one, Lian Yue thought, is the dangerous one. Bring her to the hall. The voice matched the signature exactly. Old, female, entirely in control. The crowd shifted. Someone grabbed Lian Yue's arm, not gently, and pulled. The hall smelled like old wood and authority. Lian Yue was pushed into a seat she couldn't see and left to sit while footsteps moved around her with the unhurried confidence of people in their own space. The emotional landscape was sharper here. Fewer people, but all of them purposeful. The old woman sat across from her. Lian Yue could feel her gaze like a hand pressing against her chest. "You're the ash sparrow cast out," the woman said. "I'm Lian Yue," she replied. A pause. The woman found that mildly interesting. Lian Yue felt the flicker of it. Lian Yue. The name was repeated without warmth. 0 beast compatibility, blind since birth, no clan, no value. She paused. "But you walk through the Fang forest alone, at night." "I did. How?" "Carefully," Lian Yue said. Another pause. Something shifted in the woman's emotional signature. Not admiration exactly. reassessment, then it closed back into cold calculation. I can offer you food and a roof, the woman said, in exchange for labor, cleaning, carrying, basic work. Lian Yue said nothing. The alternative, the woman continued, is I send you back to the border. Lian Yue heard something then, not through her ears, through the thin wall to her left. Two voices, low, clearly not meant to reach her. Why bother? Blind females are a burden. Just throw her back to the border. Elder Mao wants to sell her to the lowland traders. A blind zero score isn't worth much, but she walked out of the Fang forest alone. Someone might pay curiosity price for that. The cold in Lian Yue's stomach had nothing to do with hunger. She turned her face back toward Elder Mao, and smiled, small, controlled. The kind of smile that didn't reach eyes that couldn't see anyway. I accept your offer, she said quietly. For now, she did not say. Just long enough to figure out how to make you regret it. She lasted 4 days with Elder Mao. 4 days of cleaning floors she couldn't see, carrying water in buckets she navigated, by the sound of sloshing, scrubbing pots, by touch in water cold enough to crack her knuckles. 4 days of eating whatever was left after everyone else had finished. Scraps that the original body's memories identified as what you fed animals when you wanted them functional but not comfortable. 4 days of listening, that was the part Elder Mao hadn't calculated. The old woman had looked at Lian Yue and seen a blind zero-score girl with no options and no leverage. She had not considered that a girl with no eyes and a soul sensibility would spend every waking hour building a map, not of the physical space, but of the people inside it, who held real power and who only thought they did, who was afraid of whom. What secrets moved beneath the surface of daily conversation like underground water? She had learned quite a lot in 4 days, and then on the morning of the 5th day she overheard Elder Mao finalizing a price. The lowland traders come through in 2 days, Elder Mao said. Her voice came from the back room, unhurried, businesslike. The blind one, I told you, someone will pay curiosity price. She walked out of Fang Forest alone. That's worth something to the right buyer. A male voice Lian Yue didn't recognize murmured something in response. She doesn't need to know until they're here, Elder Mao said. Keep her working. Lian Yue set down the pot she was cleaning. She had known this was coming. The soul sense had told her on day 1 that Elder Mao's offer of food and shelter was never permanent. It was a holding strategy, a way to keep the merchandise cooperative until the transaction could be arranged. She had been using the 4 days to prepare anyway. She left before dawn. The problem with leaving was that she had nowhere to go. The village was positioned between 2 territories, the main clan lands to the north, and the beast border to the south. The clan lands were closed to her. She had no clan, no score, no status. Walking north meant walking back into the hands of people who had already decided she had no value. The beast border was supposed to be worse. The original body's memories described it in the way children describe monsters under the bed, with a particular specificity that suggested the fear was based on something real. The border was a 30-kilometer stretch of land between the civilized beast territories and the unmapped wild zones beyond. No clan maintained it, no laws applied there. The creatures that lived in it had evolved without human contact and without the particular moderating influence of beast-kin culture. People who went to the border came back missing pieces of themselves, or didn't come back at all. Lian Yue walked south anyway. The alternative was waiting to be sold. The border announced itself gradually. The settled land sounds faded behind her. No more cooking fires, no more voices, no more the distant percussion of clan life. The soul sense landscape changed too. Fewer domestic animal signatures, more of the dense, layered wildness she had felt in the forest on her first night, but amplified, more complex, more dangerous. The ground changed under her feet, harder, rockier. The soft forest needle carpet gave way to broken terrain that required her complete attention with every step, her blade in one hand, a new stick she had found and stripped of branches in the other, moving in careful, sweeping arcs ahead of her. She had been walking for perhaps 2 hours when she found the blood. She didn't see it, she felt it. A metallic warmth under her left foot, different from the cold rock, and then the smell hit her, iron-rich and fresh. She crouched immediately, pressing her fingers to the ground. Wet. Recent. Her sole sense stretched outward, there, 12 meters ahead, slightly downhill, pressed against what felt like a rock formation, a living signature, but damaged. She had felt healthy signatures, and she had felt the cold, flat emptiness of things that were dead, but this was something new, a signature that was present, but fraying at the edges, like fabric pulling apart at a seam. Critically injured, she thought, and still alive. Every sensible instinct she had said to move around it. An injured creature, beast or human, was unpredictable, cornered, dangerous in the specific way that things with nothing left to lose were always dangerous. She moved toward it anyway. You can't just leave something to die, she told herself. That's not... You can't. She navigated the downhill slope carefully, one hand trailing along the rock face that appeared on her right, until her stick touched something solid and warm and alive. She stopped. Human, she thought. The emotional signature had a complexity that animals didn't. Even damaged, even fraying, it had the layered quality of a conscious mind, male. Large, based on the physical presence she could feel without touching. The signature read, pain, the enormous pressing weight of it, and underneath that a furious locked-down pride that was refusing to let the pain win. Stubborn, she thought. Whoever you are extremely stubborn. She crouched beside him. Can you hear me? Nothing. She tried again. I'm going to touch your arm. I need to find where the bleeding is coming from. Don't try not to react badly. Still nothing from his voice, but the signature flickered. He was conscious, barely. She found his arm first, then his shoulder, then the wound, deep, long, on his right side below the ribs. Something had clawed him. See multiple points of entry, deep enough that she could feel the heat of it, radiating against her palm from several centimeters away. She had nothing useful. She knew that before she even inventoried her supplies. The small blade, the cloth wrappings she had taken from Elder Mao's supply room when she left, a small container of water, no medicine, no proper bandaging, no idea what she was doing beyond the basic first aid knowledge from her previous life. She tore the cloth into strips by feel and started pressing them against the wound with firm, steady pressure. This is going to hurt, she said. I'm sorry. The body beneath her hands went rigid. A sound escaped. Controlled, bitten back, but there. Pain. I know, she said. Stay still, please. She worked by touch and soul sense, suppressing and wrapping and tying with the careful, methodical focus she had applied to everything since she arrived in this world. She couldn't see if the cloth was saturated. She could feel the warmth spreading through it and change the pressure points accordingly. She couldn't see his face. She could feel the signature stabilizing. Not recovering, but stabilizing, stopping its fraying. It took a long time. When she finished, she sat back on her heels and took a breath. You need water, she said. I have some. I'm going to help you drink. She found his head carefully, one hand on the rock behind him for reference, and tilted the small container toward where she estimated his mouth to be. She got it mostly right on the second try. He drank, not much. Enough. Then he spoke. His voice was low and rough, and the words came out like each one cost him something he wasn't willing to spend. Who are you? Not a question, a demand. Lian Yue, she said. Nobody important. A pause. You're blind. Yes. Another pause, longer this time. She felt something move through his signature. Not gratitude, nothing as simple as that. Something more complicated. Confusion, layered over pride, layered over the particular discomfort of someone who had just been helped by a person they had reflexively categorized as helpless. Get away from me, he said. Lian Yue blinked. I don't need help from a blind female with no clan markings. The voice had more strength in it now. She had apparently stabilized him enough for his arrogance to come back online. Get away. She felt something move in her chest, not hurt exactly, and something more tired than hurt. She stood, brushed the dirt from her knees, and picked up her stick. Your bandaging needs to be changed in about 6 hours, she said. The cloth will saturate before then if you move too much. Try not to move too much. I didn't ask for your advice. No, she agreed, you didn't. She turned and began to walk, not back toward the village, further along the border. She had perhaps 10 meters of distance between them when she heard something land in the dirt behind her. A small, solid sound. Something dropped. She stopped. Her soul sense stretched back toward him. His signature was already fading from her range, which meant he was either moving away or losing consciousness again. But the something that had landed, she turned back, navigated the 10 meters, crouched down. Her fingers found it immediately. Small metal, a flat disc with raised markings she couldn't read, a chain attached, broken, which was probably why it had been removable. She turned it over in her fingers, tracing the markings. Her soul sense had no opinion on metal objects, but the original body's memories stirred faintly when her fingers traced the largest marking on its face, an insignia. She didn't have the knowledge to identify it specifically, but the memory feeling attached to it was unmistakable, important, powerful. Do not touch without permission. She closed her fingers around it. Why did you leave this? She thought toward the empty space where his signature had been. No answer. He was gone. She stood with the disc in her palm, alone at the beast border with wounded hands and no supplies and no destination, and turned the small metal weight over and over in her fingers. Whoever you are, she thought, I think you just made things significantly more complicated. She kept walking. She walked for 3 more hours before her legs gave out. Not dramatically. No collapsing, no crying. Her left knee simply stopped cooperating on a downward slope, and she sat down hard on a flat rock and stayed there, because the alternative was falling, and she had already done enough of that for one lifetime. The beast border was quieter in the middle of the day. She had learned that much in the hours since leaving the injured man behind. The most dangerous signatures, the large predatory ones that made her soul sense ring with low warning notes, were less active when the sun was high. They moved at dawn and dusk and deep night. Midday belonged to smaller things, scavengers, opportunists. She could manage opportunists. She drank the last of her water and turned the metal disc over in her fingers again. She had been doing that intermittently for the past 3 hours, a habit she hadn't consciously chosen. There was something about the weight of it that was grounding, real and solid in a way that the darkness around her never felt. The raised markings on its face were complex. She had traced them enough times now to have memorized the shapes without understanding them. A large central symbol, 4 smaller ones arranged around it, and along the outer edge, a repeating pattern that felt like text. The original body's memories were frustratingly incomplete on this point. She had the emotional impression of important and powerful, and do not touch, but no specific identification. The girl she had inherited this body from had grown up in a minor clan on the outer edge of beast territory. Imperial insignia would have been as abstract to her as the face of a foreign head of state. Lian Yue closed her fingers around the disc. Come back, she thought toward the empty border. I have questions. The border had no opinion on her questions. She was considering whether to find shelter and sleep or keep moving while the dangerous signatures were dormant when the system panel opened. She had almost forgotten about it. That felt absurd in retrospect. You don't forget about a mysterious supernatural interface that appeared in your mind. But survival had a way of crowding out everything that wasn't immediately relevant to not dying. The system had told her to find water within 2 hours. She had found water. And then the panel had gone quiet, and she had been too busy bleeding from her knuckles and navigating rock formations to think about it. Now it opened with the particular quality of something that had been waiting patiently and had decided enough time had passed. Lian Yue read it twice. Then she sat very still on her rock in the middle of the beast border and thought about it carefully. 98.7% accuracy on emotional reading. She thought about Elder Mao, whose pleasant voice had carried cold calculation underneath it from the first sentence. She thought about the woman in the forest who had taken her supplies with cheerful efficiency. She thought about the crowd in the settlement whose laughter had that specific layered quality, some of it cruel, some of it just reflexive, some of it covering discomfort that nobody wanted to examine too closely. She had felt all of that. Instinctively, without knowing it was a system ability. She had thought it was just perception, attention, the heightened awareness that blindness forced on you. But it was more than that. Intent perception, she thought, passive, real time, cannot be faked. She thought about every conversation she had in 4 days at Elder Mao's settlement, every word spoken to her, every silence, every seemingly casual question. She had navigated all of it by feel. By that sense, she had assumed was just careful observation. She had been reading truth the entire time, without knowing she was doing it. What could I do, she thought slowly, if I did it on purpose? The system panel pulsed once gently, as if in response to the question. Then it added a single line at the bottom. Suggestion. The subject you assisted approximately 4.2 kilometers northwest is regaining consciousness. His power level signature is now within your expanded range. Recommend assessment. Lian Yue's head turned northwest. She stretched the soul sense. Deliberately this time, with intention, the way the system had implicitly been trying to teach her, and felt it. There. The signature she had left 3 hours ago, still fraying at the edges but significantly more stable than when she had found it. The furious lockdown pride was back at full strength, which she was choosing to interpret as a positive indicator of recovery. And now that she was reading it with full calibration, she felt her breath catch that she thought is not the signature of a nobody. Yet she heard him before she felt his approach, which meant he was moving carefully, deliberately masking his footsteps. That told her something immediately. He was trained well enough that controlled movement was instinct, even injured. She stayed where she was on the rock and waited. He stopped approximately 3 meters from her. Silence. She let it sit for a moment, then said, "How's the side?" A pause. "How did you know I was there?" Again, not a question. "You move quietly," she said, "but you can't mask your presence entirely. Something about the air changes when someone is close." That was true as far as it went. It was also not the complete answer. The complete answer was that his power level signature was currently registering at the very top of Tier 3's assessment range, which meant her soul sense was essentially screaming at her that this person was extraordinarily dangerous, and that kind of information tended to make a person aware of exactly where the source was located at all times. "You came back," she said. "I came to retrieve something." She opened her fingers. The metal disc sat in her palm. Chain pooled around it. Another silence, longer this time. "Give it to me." "In a moment," she said. I have a question first." The emotional signature spiked. Sharp warning. He was not accustomed to being told in a moment by anyone, she suspected, and certainly not by a blind girl sitting on a rock at the beast border with no clan and no status. "You don't want to test my patience," he said. "I'm not testing it," she said. "I'm genuinely asking one question, and then I'll give it back. The question is, why?" "Why what?" "Why did you leave it?" She kept her voice level. "You were injured. You told me to get away from you. You left, and then you dropped this where I could find it." She turned the disc in her fingers. "You didn't do it by accident. A man with your training doesn't drop things by accident." The silence this time had a different quality. She felt something move through his signature, the locked-down pride shifting slightly, making room for something more complicated. "Give me the disc," he said. She held it out. She felt him step forward, 1 step, 2, and take it from her palm. His fingers didn't touch hers, careful, deliberate. "Your bandaging technique," he said after a moment. "Where did you learn it?" "Previous life," she said honestly. He clearly didn't know what to do with that answer. She tilted her head slightly, reading his signature with the full calibration now active. Power level, extraordinary. The highest she had encountered since arriving in this world, by a significant margin. Emotional state. Pain still present, but managed. Confusion he was actively suppressing. And underneath both of those, the particular signature of someone reassessing a situation they thought they had already categorized and closed. Intent. He had come back for the disc. That was genuine, but there was a secondary intent layered underneath it, less certain. He wanted to understand something. He had come back to understand something. "Your first general," she said. The air changed completely. She felt it. His entire signature shifted. The controlled surface cracked just slightly, just for a moment. Genuine shock. on the kind that bypasses all your trained composure and lands before you can stop it. What did you say? He said. Your power level is unlike anything I've felt since I arrived here, she said calmly. The insignia on the disc, I can't read the markings, but the original owner of this body has a memory attached to them. Important, imperial, untouchable. She paused. And your killing aura. My killing aura, he repeated. You've controlled it very well. Someone who didn't know what to look for, feel for, would never notice it. She folded her hands in her lap. But you've killed many people, probably on orders, probably without hesitation. That doesn't wash off, General, not completely. Not even when you're trying to look like an injured nobody in the middle of the border. Complete silence. She waited. You hid your rank, she said quietly, but your killing aura never lies. The silence stretched for 10 full seconds. Then, unexpected entirely, she felt his signature shift again. The shock was closing back up, the composure reassembling itself, but underneath it, where the simple emotions lived before training got to them, she felt something she had not felt from a single person since arriving in this world. Genuine interest, not the opportunistic kind, not the calculating kind, the kind that meant, I did not expect you, I don't know what to do with you. I intend to find out. Lian Yue, he said, her name, exactly as she had given it. Nobody important. That's right, she said. You're at the border alone. No clan, no score, no supplies. A pause. Where are you going? I haven't decided yet. Another pause. My name is Zhao Li, he said. The words came out like a decision being made in real time. First General of the Beast Empire. Lian Yue nodded slowly. I know, she said. She did not agree immediately. That seemed important to establish, because the easy version of this story would have her saying yes without hesitation. Grateful and relieved, reaching for the first hand extended in her direction. But Lian Yue had spent 4 days being someone's convenient labor and had nearly been sold to lowland traders for curiosity price, and she had learned something important from that experience. Never accept an offer before you understand what it costs. So when Zhao Li said, in the flat, declarative tone of a man who did not make suggestions, on only statements, You'll come to the capital, she had said why instead of yes. The silence that followed had a particular quality. She suspected very few people asked Zhao Li why about anything. You have an ability, he said finally. I don't know what it is. I want to know what it is. That's not a reason for me to go, she said. That's a reason for you to want me to. Another silence, longer. What do you want? He said. She had thought about it honestly. Safety, food, a roof that wasn't contingent on someone else's calculation of her usefulness, information about this world, about the beast territories, about what a zero-score blind transmigrator could realistically build for herself here. Protection, she said. Real protection. Not useful until you're not. Not tolerated until something better comes along. If I come with you, I need to know it doesn't end the moment I stop being interesting. The emotional signature she felt from him in response to that was complicated. The locked down pride again, but this time with something underneath it that felt almost like respect. The reluctant kind. The kind you feel for something that surprises you into it. You have my word, he said. Her soul sense registered the intent beneath the words, genuine, absolute, the signature of a man for whom a given word was not a social nicety, but a binding contract. Then yes, she said, I'll come. The journey to the imperial capital took 4 days. Grey Zhao Li had a transport, waiting at the border's northern edge. She heard the engine before she felt the signatures of the 2 soldiers inside it, both of whom radiated a very specific emotional combination when they saw her. Confusion, and the careful blankness of people who had learned not to ask their general questions. She appreciated the blankness. Questions were exhausting. Zhao Li's wound was serious enough that he slept for most of the first day's travel. Lian Yue sat in the opposite seat and spent the time doing what she had been doing since she arrived in this world, listening, feeling, building maps. The soldiers spoke quietly to each other when they thought she was sleeping. She learned more about the imperial capital in 4 hours of pretending to sleep than she could have learned in days of asking direct questions. 4 generals. That was the command structure of the Beast Empire's military. Not one supreme commander, 4, with equal theoretical authority and a history of spectacular disagreements about almost everything. Zhao Liya was the first general, cold, brilliant, utterly without patience for anything he considered inefficient, which included most human behavior. She filed that away and kept listening. The capital arrived as a sensation before it arrived as a sound. The soul sense landscape changed dramatically as they entered populated territory. From the sparse, wild signatures of the border and the road, to something dense and layered and overwhelming that hit her like walking into a crowded room after hours of silence. Thousands of signatures, hundreds of thousands, each one distinct, each one carrying its own emotional weather. She pressed her back against the seat and breathed carefully and turned the sensitivity down. She hadn't known she could do that until she tried it. But the system responded to intention, and her intention was not to be flattened by an entire city at once. Better, manageable. "We're here," Zhao Li said, first words in approximately 6 hours. "I noticed," she said. The military compound was large. She mapped it by sound and soul sense within the first hour. Stone floors that echoed differently in wide corridors versus small rooms. The particular acoustic of high ceilings. A training ground, somewhere to the east. She could hear impact sounds, controlled shouts, the rhythmic percussion of disciplined exercise. So Zhao Li had installed her in a room and said, with the brusque efficiency that appeared to be his primary mode of communication, "Stay here until I come back." She had nodded. She had not stayed. She had waited 40 minutes, which was long enough for his signature to move to the far side of the compound, and then she had navigated the corridor outside her door using stick and soul sense and the extremely useful fact that military compounds were, by necessity, rationally organized. She was mapping the eastern corridor when she walked into someone, not literally. Her stick touched his boot and she stopped. But the collision of signatures was almost physical. This one was bright and layered and amused, radiating the specific warmth of someone who found everything slightly funnier than everyone else did. "Well," said a voice, light and melodic, the kind of voice that smiled while it spoke. "You're not supposed to be out here. Neither observation is technically your business," she said. A delighted sound, somewhere between a laugh and an exhale. "I like you already. You're the blind girl Zhao Li dragged in from the border?" "I prefer Lian Yue," she said, "and he didn't drag me. I walked." Noted. She felt him lean against the wall, casual, comfortable, completely at home in his own presence in the way that deeply confident people were. General Shen Yu, Fox Clan, second most handsome man in the Empire, depending on who you ask. "I'll take your word for it," she said, another delighted sound. "I'm going to enjoy this." She felt the layers of him as they spoke. The playfulness was genuine, not a mask, but it sat over something sharper and more watchful. The Fox clan reputation for cunning was apparently not exaggerated. Underneath the warmth and the easy laughter was a mind that was cataloging her with the same efficiency she was cataloging him. "He's testing me," she realized. The friendliness is real and the assessment is also real, both at the same time. "You're reading me," he said, not accusatory, curious. She considered denying it. "Yes." "What do you see?" "That you already know the answer to that question," she said, "and you're asking it to see what I'll say." The silence that followed had a quality she was beginning to recognize, the specific texture of someone recalibrating. "Zhao Liya is going to be annoyed you left your room," Shen Yu said finally. "Probably," she agreed. And she met the third general 20 minutes later in the compound's medical wing. She had navigated there by following the smell of herbs and the soul sense signatures of people in pain, which clustered around healing spaces the way warmth clustered around fires. He was working. She felt his concentration before she heard him. A deep, focused calm with something underneath it that felt like loneliness, so long-standing it had become structural, like a beam the building had grown around. "You shouldn't be in here," he said. His voice was quiet, careful with itself, the way people were careful with voices when they spent a lot of time around people who were hurting. "This is the medical wing." "I know," she said. I followed the herbs." A pause. You can identify medicinal herbs by smell. Some of them. I'm learning. She felt something shift in his signature, the focused calm expanding slightly to include her. Not romantic, not yet, just inclusion. The specific warmth of someone who understood what it meant to navigate the world with a different set of tools than everyone else. Tiger Clan, she said, a healer. General Rui Zan, he said, third general. A brief pause. You're Zhao Li's guest? That appears to be the current classification, she said, something almost like a smile in his emotional signature. He's never had a guest before. I believe it, she said. She didn't find the fourth general. The fourth general found her. She was navigating back toward her assigned rooms. She had pushed the soul sense range far enough for long enough that she was tired in a way she didn't have a name for yet. The specific exhaustion of a new sense being used past its comfortable limit, and when she felt it, a signature behind her, close, had been there for at least 3 minutes, not moving, not speaking, just present. She stopped walking. The signature was unlike the others. Zhao Li's was locked down and military and carried killing weight. Shen Yu's was layered warmth over sharp intelligence. Rui Zhan's was deep calm over structural loneliness. This one was still, not the stillness of control, like Zhao Li. Natural stillness, the stillness of something that had learned long ago that patience was more powerful than motion. Underneath it, watchfulness so complete it felt like a physical thing. And underneath that, buried deep enough that she almost missed it, curiosity, raw and unguarded and apparently involuntary. So because the rest of him was so controlled that this one unguarded thing stood out like a candle in a dark room. He didn't mean for me to feel that, she realized. She turned to face him. You've been behind me for 3 minutes, she said. Nothing. Wolf Clan, she said. The original body's memories supplied the particular quality of that stillness. Wolves watched before they moved, always. Fourth general, a single word, low, rough-edged. Kyle. Lian Yue, she said. Silence. She waited, but nothing further came. His emotional signature had locked back down over that involuntary curiosity the moment she named it, and now he was simply present, watchful, giving nothing. You followed me from the eastern corridor, she said. Nothing. You're not going to say anything else, are you? Nothing. She turned back toward her room. Good night. General Kale. She had taken 4 steps when she felt it again. That involuntary flicker, there and gone in an instant. He's smiling, she thought. He didn't want to, but he is. She filed it away carefully, alongside everything else she had learned today. 4 generals. 4 completely different architectures of personality, all of them suspicious of her. She had felt that clearly, the wariness running underneath every interaction like a current. But not one of them had been able to simply walk away. Good, she thought, neither can I. She had been in the imperial capital for 11 days before anyone officially acknowledged she existed. That suited her perfectly. Zhao Li had given her the room, the protection, and exactly 0 explanation to anyone about who she was or why she was there. The soldiers in the compound had developed a careful relationship with her presence. They knew she was the first general's guest. They knew asking questions about her was inadvisable. And they had collectively decided that the safest approach was to treat her like furniture that occasionally spoke. She used the 11 days the way she used everything, to learn. The compound's rhythms became familiar within 3 days. Who walked which corridors at which hours, where the decision-making happened versus where the execution happened, which soldiers were ambitious and which were loyal and which were both and which were neither. The emotional landscape of the compound filled in like a map being drawn in real time, each day adding detail and depth to what the day before had only sketched. She also, quietly and without announcing it, or began to notice things. It started with a supply discrepancy. She overheard 2 logistics officers arguing in the corridor outside the supply room, not loudly. The controlled tension of people who disagreed about numbers but couldn't raise their voices because raising your voice in a military compound invited scrutiny. The argument was about grain quantities. The record said one number, the physical stock said another. The gap was not enormous, but it was consistent. the same modest shortage, repeated across 6 consecutive supply cycles. She stood in the corridor and listened and read both of their signatures. The first officer, frustrated, genuinely confused, the emotional texture of someone who kept finding an answer that didn't make sense and kept checking their arithmetic. The second officer, also frustrated, but underneath the frustration, something else, something careful and contained and pointed inward. The specific feeling of a person performing a reaction rather than having one. He already knows why the numbers don't match, she thought. He knows exactly why. She did nothing with this information for 2 days. She watched instead. The second officer's patterns, his contacts, where he went after his duties ended, who he spoke to, and for how long and with what emotional signature underneath the words. On the 3rd day, she went to Zhao Li. He was in his office. She had mapped its location on day 2 and had been carefully not going there until she had something worth saying. She knocked. He said nothing, which she had learned meant enter. "You have a supply leak," she said. "Officer Fen in logistics. He's been skimming grain in small consistent amounts for at least 6 cycles. He reports to someone outside the compound. I don't know who yet, but the contact happens on the 4th evening of each week somewhere in the Eastern Market District." Silence. "How do you know this?" Zhao Li said. "I watched him for 2 days," she said. "His emotional pattern when the discrepancy comes up is wrong. He performs confusion instead of feeling it." Another silence. She felt him processing this, not doubting it exactly, but running it against his own observations, cross-referencing. "Officer Fen has served for 9 years, he said. "I know," she said. "That's probably why nobody looked closely." A long pause. "I'll have him followed," Zhao Li said. She nodded and turned to leave. "Lian Yue." She stopped. "How long have you known?" 2 days, she said. "I waited until I was certain." She felt something move in his signature, that reluctant respect again, more settled now than when she had first felt it at the border. "Next time," he said. "Don't wait 2 days." "Next time," she said. "I'll use my judgment about when I'm certain." She left before he could respond to that. Officer Fen was followed. The contact was confirmed, the information he had been passing. Supply quantities, patrol schedules, rotation timings, led back to a rival clan operating a network of informants in 3 different military compounds across the capital. It unraveled quickly after that. 7 people arrested, 2 compounds secured, a vulnerability in the Imperial military's logistics chain that had been operating for over a year. She closed in 11 days by a blind girl who had been officially invisible. She heard about the arrests through the compound's ambient conversation. She felt the shift in the emotional landscape, the particular release of tension that moved through a group when a threat they hadn't consciously identified is removed, and then she felt something else, eyes on her, more of them than before, curious, cautious, reassessing. Her invisible period was over. Shen Yu came first, because Shen Yu always came first to anything interesting. He appeared at her door on the evening of the arrests, with the specific emotional signature of someone who had been waiting for a socially acceptable moment and had decided this was it. She felt his approach in the corridor, that layered warmth, that watchful intelligence, and underneath both something newer, and something that had not been there in their first conversation. "You found the spy," he said when she opened the door. "Zhao Li's people found the spy," she said. "I just pointed." He leaned against the door frame. She felt the casual shift of his posture. "Can I come in?" "You're going to anyway," she said. "I like that you know that," he said, and came in. He sat. She heard the chair, felt him settle into it with the boneless ease of someone completely comfortable in any space they occupied. She sat on the edge of her bed and waited. "How did you know it was Fen?" he said. "His reaction pattern was wrong," she said. "His reaction pattern," Shen Yu repeated slowly. "You read people." "Somewhat." "Not somewhat," he said. The playfulness was still there, but the sharp intelligence underneath it had come forward. "I've been watching you since you arrived. You read everyone, all the time. You've been building a map of this entire compound since day 1. She said nothing. That's not an accusation, he said, and she felt the truth of it. Genuine, no edge of threat. That's me telling you I noticed, and I'm not going to pretend I didn't because I think you'd find that insulting. She felt something unexpected move in her chest, the specific warmth of being seen accurately. Thank you, she said quietly. I also, he said, and the playfulness was back now, layered over the sincerity instead of replacing it. Think you're the most interesting person who has ever come through this compound, which is saying something, because I am also here. She laughed, a short, genuine sound that surprised her slightly. His emotional signature bloomed at that. So warm and pleased, and something softer underneath, something that felt less like calculation and more like the involuntary response of someone who had not expected to feel what they were feeling. He means it, she thought. Underneath all the performance, he genuinely means it. Shen Yu, she said carefully. Don't. A pause. Don't what? Whatever you're about to do next, she said. The thing where the sincerity becomes a move. Don't. Silence, long enough that she wondered if she had miscalculated. Then, quietly, stripped of the performance entirely, how do you do that? I told you, she said, I read people. I've never had anyone read me before, he said. The words were simple. The emotional weight behind them was not. I know, she said gently. It must be strange. It's terrifying, he said. And then, immediately after, so with the warmth coming back, I think I'm in serious trouble. Probably, she agreed. Rui Zan came 2 days later, with herbs. She heard him at her door, the careful knock of someone who wasn't certain they were welcome, and felt his signature before she opened it, that deep calm, that structural loneliness, and something new layered over both. Purposefulness. He had decided to come and had talked himself into it and was now committed. I thought you might need these, he said when she opened the door. The border air is hard on skin. Your hands were cracked when you arrived. She held out her hands. He checked them. Professional, gentle, thorough. And she felt his focused calm wrap around the interaction like a clean cloth. They've healed well, he said. You've been using something. River clay from the training ground drainage, she said. Improvised. A pause. That actually works, he said. Something like admiration in it. You sound surprised. I'm a healer, he said. I'm always surprised when people figure things out without formal training. She felt the loneliness pulse underneath his words, not painfully, just present, the way an old scar was present. You don't have many people to talk to about healing, she said. His hands stilled briefly. The other generals aren't interested. I am, she said simply. The silence that followed was the warmest she had felt since arriving in this world. Kale did not come to her door, but she felt him twice, 3 times, 4. In corridors she was walking, at a consistent distance that said not following, just aware. His signature never changed. That deep, natural stillness, that complete watchfulness, and that involuntary thread of curiosity that he clearly could not entirely suppress. She did not acknowledge him. She filed him away and let him watch. He'll come when he's ready, she thought. Wolves always do. She was sitting by the eastern window. She couldn't see the view, but she could feel the afternoon warmth on her face and hear the training ground below. When the system panel opened with a notification she hadn't been expecting. She noticed Zhao Li first, not because he was obvious, or he was the least obvious person she had ever encountered, a man who had apparently made a lifetime practice of being exactly as visible as he chose to be and no more. But the soul sense didn't care about practiced invisibility. It registered presence the way skin registered temperature, automatically below the level of conscious decision. He had been guiding her path for 6 days before she named it. It started small. A corridor she used every morning had a loose stone she had catalogued on day 3. She had learned its exact position and stepped around it automatically. On the 7th day, it was gone. Not loose anymore. Reset into the floor so cleanly, she only noticed the absence because she had been expecting the slight give beneath her foot. She said nothing. 2 days later, the route from her room to the eastern window she favored had a new obstacle. A storage crate that had appeared overnight, positioned exactly where her natural walking line would take her. She found it with her stick and navigated around it without incident. Just the next morning, it was gone. She stood in the corridor where it had been and extended her soul sense and felt there, at the far end, moving away with the unhurried efficiency of a man who had somewhere to be. Zhao Li's signature, the locked-down pride, the military precision, and underneath both something she had not felt from him before, protectiveness, not the transactional kind. Not I am protecting my asset, the involuntary kind, the kind that woke up in the night and moved furniture. She said nothing to him, but the next morning she took a slightly different route, one she had not used before, and at the third turn, her stick found a small stone that would have been easy to trip on. It was gone the following day. You're not subtle, she thought toward his absent signature, but I appreciate it. Rui Shan had developed a habit of appearing at her door in the late afternoon. He always had a reason. Herbs to check, a new remedy he wanted her opinion on, a question about something she had said 3 days ago that he had apparently been turning over ever since. The reasons were genuine, she felt that clearly, but the reasons were also, she suspected, slightly beside the point. This one is for inflammation, he said, pressing a small cloth packet into her hands. The border left some residual stress in your joints. You probably can't feel it yet, but you will in cold weather. It's not cold weather, she said. It will be, he said simply. I'm a healer. I plan ahead. She turned the packet over in her fingers. What does it smell like? Pine resin and something sharp. That's the active component. And underneath, something sweeter. Yen tiger lily extract. Tiger clan ingredient, she said. A pause. Yes. Is that what your territory smells like? The question surprised him. She felt the flicker of it. I haven't been home in 4 years, he said after a moment. But yes, the eastern forests, after rain especially. She nodded slowly. That sounds like somewhere worth going back to. The structural loneliness pulsed, present, familiar, but something shifted around it, like a window being opened in a room that had been closed too long. Maybe, he said quietly, someday. They sat in the late afternoon warmth, and she felt him stay. Not because he had more reasons, but because the silence between them had the particular quality of silence that both people in it want to continue. She let it continue. It cost her nothing, and gave him something she could feel him needing. He stayed for 2 hours. When he left, the loneliness in his signature was still there, structural, load-bearing, but something warm had been laid alongside it. She sat with the tiger lily packet in her hands and thought, I need to be careful. Not because she didn't mean the warmth she felt toward him, because she did. The assassination attempt came on a Tuesday. She had been in the compound for 23 days. She knew the rhythms of the place well enough that deviations registered automatically. A signature where there shouldn't be one. An emotional pattern that didn't fit the context. She was walking the northern corridor after the evening meal, later than her usual time, when her soul sense caught it. 2 signatures. Eastern alcove 12 meters ahead. The emotional pattern. Controlled flat, the specific blankness of professional intent. Not soldiers. Soldiers had institutional loyalty woven through even their combat signatures. These 2 had the hired quality. The clean transactional focus of people who felt nothing about the work beyond completion. Step family, she thought immediately. That was faster than I expected. She stopped walking, reversed her direction without hurry, and she didn't want to run. Running announced awareness, and awareness changed the calculation. If they thought she didn't know they were there, she had taken 3 steps back when a third signature appeared, behind her, close, very close. She spun, instinctive, useless, and felt Kale's signature land over her like a physical thing. That deep natural stillness, that complete watchfulness, and beneath it, for something that was not stillness at all. Fury, she thought, controlled to the point of invisibility but absolutely present. She heard rather than felt what happened next. Movement, impact, 2 separate sounds of bodies hitting the floor, and then silence so complete it felt loud. 12 seconds, possibly less. She stood with her stick raised and her heart doing something complicated, and Kyle's signature directly in front of her. closer than he had ever stood before. "Are you hurt?" he said. The words came out rough-edged and short, the way all his words did, but the fury underneath them had shifted, and she felt it change in the moment he spoke to her, the heat of it redirecting from the threat that was no longer present to something more complicated, something she didn't have a name for yet. "No," she said. "Are you?" A pause. "No." She lowered her stick slowly. "You were following me." "I was behind you," he said. The distinction appeared to matter to him. "You've been behind me for 23 days, she said. "Nothing, Kyle. You don't watch your back," he said. "You watch forward and sides. Your back is unprotected." She absorbed this. "So you've been covering it. Nothing." Which was, she had learned, his version of yes. She stood in the corridor with two unconscious assassins somewhere behind him and the warmth of his presence in front of her, and felt the involuntary curiosity in his signature, and still there, still unguarded, still clearly something he hadn't chosen and couldn't entirely suppress. "Thank you," she said simply. He didn't move away. He stood beside her, slightly behind, slightly to her left, to the position of someone placing themselves between a protected person and the direction threats were most likely to come from. He stayed there the entire walk back to her room. He said nothing else. He didn't need to. Shen Yu appeared in her doorway that same evening. She suspected he had heard about the attempt within minutes of it happening, because Shen Yu appeared to have a personal intelligence network that operated faster than official channels. His signature when he arrived was the most unguarded she had seen it. The performance layers were thin. The warmth was there, but the sharp intelligence had come fully forward, and underneath both of them was something raw that he was not successfully containing. "I heard," he said. "I'm fine," she said. "I know you're fine." He came into the room without asking. So she heard him sit, not in the chair this time, closer, the edge of the table. "Kyle got there first." "He was already there," she said. "Yes," a pause. "He's been there for 23 days apparently." Another pause. "I've been watching you from a corridor away. Zhao Li moves furniture in the night. Rui-san brings you things to make sure you don't hurt in cold weather." A short sound, not quite a laugh. We're all doing versions of the same thing. She said nothing. "I'm going to say something," Shen Yu said. "The others won't say it because Zhao Li doesn't say things. KL communicates exclusively in presence, and Ruizan is too careful of your feelings to risk saying something that might not land correctly." She waited. "I want to be the one you reach for in the dark," he said. The words were simple, direct. The emotional signature behind them was the most unguarded thing she had ever felt from him. All the performance stripped away, just the raw, sincere fact of it sitting in the air between them. She sat with it for a long moment. "Shen Yu, I'm not asking you to answer," he said quickly. "I know you won't answer. Not tonight. Possibly not for a long time." The warmth was coming back now, layering back over the sincerity, but gently this time, not to hide it, just to make it livable. "I just needed you to know because you read everyone, and I think it's only fair that occasionally someone says the thing out loud instead of making you work for it." She felt something tighten in her chest, not discomfort, something more complicated, the specific weight of being seen by 4 different people in 4 different ways, all of them genuine, all of them sincere, none of them what she had expected to find in a world that had called her worthless. "It's not fair," she said quietly. "What isn't?" "That all 4 of you are sincere," she said. "It would be significantly easier if one of you was lying." He laughed, a real one, startled out of him. "I'll let the others know you said that." "Please don't," she said. "Absolutely not," he agreed cheerfully. She sat in the quiet after he left and held the evening carefully. The loose stone that disappeared, the tiger lily packet, the presence at her back in a dark corridor, the words said out loud because someone had decided she deserved to hear them. Her soul sense had read every single one of them with the same result. Sincere, genuine, real. She pressed her hands flat against her knees and breathed. How, she thought. Did I end up here? No answer came. The darkness behind her eyes was the same as always, complete, total, absolute, but for the first time since she had woken up in it, it felt slightly less like a wall. It felt in some strange and terrifying way like a door. She had been expecting them. That was the thing nobody understood. Not Zhao Li, who heard the news with the particular stillness of a man recalculating threat assessments. Not Shen Yu, who appeared at her door with his performance layers thin and his sharp intelligence fully forward. Not Rui Shan, who brought herbs she didn't need and stayed longer than the herbs justified. Not Kale, who simply appeared in the corridor outside her room and did not leave. They all reacted as though the arrival of the Ash Sparrow clan delegation was a surprise. For Lian Yue, it was simply the next step in a sequence she had been watching build since the system notification 17 days ago. They know I'm alive. They know where I am. Likely next action, interference. Interference had arrived. It had arrived with 11 clan members, a formal delegation banner, a Stoneback clan escort. The Stoneback clan being one of the 4 major clans of the capital region, with enough political weight to demand imperial attention, and a written petition addressed to the imperial court. She knew all of this before any of the generals told her because she had felt the delegation's arrival in the compound's ambient emotional landscape. 17 new signatures, clustered and purposeful, with the specific combination of righteous conviction and calculated aggression that she had learned to recognize as people who had decided they were owed something and had come to collect. She also recognized underneath the collective signature 2 individual ones that the original body's memories identified immediately. Her stepmother, her stepsister. The stepmother's signature was exactly as she had imagined it from the original girl's memories. Cold and controlled and pointed, like a blade that had learned to look decorative. The stepsister's was younger, more volatile, the specific bright-edged energy of someone who had grown up winning and expected to keep winning. Lian Yue sat in her room and drank her morning tea and waited. Zhao Li came first, and he entered without knocking. She had learned this was his version of urgency, and she felt his signature immediately, the controlled surface in place, but underneath it, something running hot. The protectiveness she had identified weeks ago now sharpened into something with edges. The Ash Sparrow clan has filed a formal petition with the Imperial Court, he said. Stoneback clan is co-signing. They're requesting an Imperial hearing. About me, she said. About you. A pause. The petition claims you are a fraud, that you fabricated your clan casting to gain access to military facilities. It also claims, his voice didn't change, that in itself told her something, that you carry a cursed bloodline, that your presence in the capital has already caused harm. They're citing the assassination attempt as evidence. She set down her tea carefully. They're saying I caused the assassination attempt against myself. They're saying your cursed status attracted hostile forces to the compound. She absorbed this. It was, she had to admit, a clever angle. Take the evidence of danger directed at her and reframe it as danger emanating from her. In a world built on bloodlines and scores, a zero-compatibility blind female with no clan was exactly the kind of person a cursed bloodline accusation would stick to. What does the Imperial Court want? She said. A hearing 3 days from now. A pause that had weight in it. Your presence is required. I'll be there, she said. Lian Yue. The way he said her name had changed over the weeks, less like a label and more like something he had decided to handle carefully. I can intervene. I have standing with the court. One word from the first general. No, she said. Silence. I appreciate it, she said genuinely, but no. She felt him processing this, the hot thing underneath his controlled surface pressing against the control, looking for an outlet. This is not a situation where pride is a useful... It's not pride, she said quietly. If you intervene, the outcome belongs to you. They'll appeal, reframe, find another angle. The only way to close this permanently is to close it myself. She paused. I need them to lose to me, not to you. A long silence. She felt the hot thing underneath his surface settle, not cool down, just accept a direction. The protectiveness redirecting from prevent this to make sure she survives this. 3 days. he said. 3 days, she agreed. Shen Yu came an hour later with information she hadn't asked for and needed immediately. The Stoneback clan co-signature, he said, settling into the chair with the ease of someone who had decided it was his. That's not a favor to the Ash Sparrow clan. The Ash Sparrow clan isn't significant enough for Stoneback to spend political capital on without a reason. Someone asked them to, she said. Someone paid them to, Shen Yu corrected. I've been tracing the petition filing. The formal request was submitted through a Stoneback junior official, but the documentation was prepared by someone with court-level legal knowledge. This was written by a professional. She turned this over carefully. Someone in the court wants me removed from the capital. Someone in the court wanted to know if you could be removed cleanly, Shen Yu said. The petition is a test. If it succeeds, you're gone. If it fails, he paused. They'll know more about what you can do. Either way, they learn something, she said. Either way, he agreed. The sharp intelligence was fully present, the warmth temporarily secondary. Lian Yue, I can find out who filed the professional documentation. Given 3 days. No, she said. He stopped. Don't investigate on my behalf, she said. Not yet. If you find the person behind this before the hearing, it becomes a different kind of conflict. I want to handle the hearing on its own terms first. She felt him want to argue. She felt him decide not to. After the hearing, he said. I'm finding them after. After the hearing, she agreed. I'll probably find them first. Ruizan didn't come until evening. He sat beside her without speaking for a long time, which she had learned was his way of being present, without adding to the weight of a heavy day. She appreciated it more than she could easily say. Are you afraid? He said finally. She considered lying. A little. Good, he said quietly. Fear means you're being realistic. A pause. What can I do? Nothing right now, she said. But she hesitated. Tell me about the Imperial Court, the formal structure, how hearings work, what the procedure is. He knew. She had suspected he would. Ruizan's gentleness sat over a breadth of knowledge that still surprised her regularly. The accumulated learning of a man who had spent years in service to an empire and paid attention to all of it. He talked for 2 hours. She listened the way she listened to everything, completely, building the map, marking the significant points. By the time he left, she knew the court's formal structure, the rules of evidence, the rights of the accused, and 3 procedural mechanisms that the petition's authors had probably assumed she didn't know existed. Thank you, she said at his departure. Lian Yue, he said, you're going to do something in that hearing that none of us are expecting. Probably, she said. She felt him smile, warm and quiet and genuinely certain. Good. Kyle appeared at midnight. Not at her door. She heard him settle in the corridor outside it, the particular quality of someone sitting against a wall, unprepared to stay. His signature was its usual deep stillness, its watchfulness, the involuntary thread of something he couldn't suppress. Tonight, underneath the stillness, she felt something else. Something she read carefully, because she wanted to be certain she was reading it correctly. Anger, she thought, not at me, for me. She got up, crossed to her door, opened it. She couldn't see him, but she felt his signature shift. Surprise, quickly controlled. You don't have to sit in the corridor, she said. Nothing. Kyle. The people who sent those assassins, he said. His voice was low and even. They came from your step-family's direction. I know, she said. They're in the capital now. I know that too. A pause. They're going to stand in front of you in 3 days and say things about you. The evenness of his voice had something underneath it, running like a current under still water. Things that aren't true? Yes, she said, and you're not going to let any of us stop them. No, she said. I'm going to stop them myself. The silence that followed was long. She felt him process this, the anger and the watchfulness and the involuntary thread of feeling, all of it running through the filter of a man who had learned that the most powerful thing was sometimes staying still. I'll be there, he said finally, in the court. I know, she said softly. You'll be behind me. A pause. Your back is unprotected. Not when you're there, she said. She felt the involuntary thing in his signature bloom, there and gone in an instant, suppressed before it could fully form. But she felt it. She went back to bed. 3 days. She spent them the way she spent everything. Methodically, deliberately, building what she needed from what she had. Rui Zan's knowledge of court procedure, Shen Yu's intelligence about the petition's origins, Zhao Lia's information about the Stoneback clan's current political position, Kale's instinct for threat, which she had learned to read through his signature as a secondary early warning system. She pulled no favors, requested no interventions, asked nothing of any of them except information. On the morning of the hearing, she sat in her room and let the soul sense extend fully past the compound, past its walls, reaching toward the Imperial Court District, where the emotional landscape was already building. The Ash Sparrow delegation, righteous and certain. The Stoneback co-signers, transactional, focused on outcome. The court officials, procedural, mostly neutral, awaiting direction. And underneath all of it, the hidden signature she had been tracking for 3 days. The one connected to the professional documentation. The one Shen Yu hadn't found yet because she had asked him not to look. She had found it herself. She knew exactly who was behind this, and she knew exactly what to do with that knowledge. She stood, picked up her stick, turned toward the door. "I don't need eyes to destroy them," she said quietly to the empty room. "I just need the truth." The Imperial Court was the loudest place she had ever been. Not in sound, the chamber was formally silent when she entered. The kind of enforced quiet that official spaces maintained through architecture and tradition, and the particular social pressure of being watched by people with power. But in soul sense, it was deafening. Hundreds of signatures packed into a tiered stone chamber, each one carrying its own emotional weather. Court officials, with their procedural neutrality, sitting over currents of personal interest. Clan representatives with their public faces and private calculations. Observers, she could feel the weight of them, rows of them, their collective curiosity pressing against her like a physical thing. She walked in alone. She had refused an escort. She had refused a guide. She had refused Zhao Li's offer to walk beside her and Shen Yu's offer to walk behind her, and Rui Zan's quiet suggestion that he could at least accompany her to the chamber entrance. She had felt Kyle fall into position 30 meters back as she left the compound, and had not told him to stop because telling Kale to stop was different from telling the others. Kale's presence at her back was structural now, like a wall she had stopped noticing, because it had always been there. She walked into the Imperial Court with her stick and her soul sense and nothing else. The chamber's emotional landscape shifted the moment she entered. She felt it. The attention swinging toward her, hundreds of individual recalibrations happening simultaneously. A blind girl, 0 clan marking, walking without hesitation into the center of Imperial authority. Let them look, she thought. Let them recalibrate. She found the petitioner's position by the floor icon. The stone changed texture where the formal standing area began, slightly smoother, worn by generations of people who had stood in it to argue their cases. She stopped in the center of it and turned her face toward the elevated section where the court officials sat. 11 officials. She read them one by one quickly, cataloging. 8 were genuinely neutral, procedural, interested in correct outcome, no personal stake. 2 had the transactional focus she recognized as Stoneback aligned. 1, the one seated third from the center, slightly elevated from the others, had a signature she had been tracking for 3 days. There you are, she thought. And the senior court official opened the proceedings with formal language she let wash over her while she worked, mapping the chamber, identifying the witnesses the petition had listed, reading the Ash Sparrow delegation where they stood to her left. Her stepmother, her stepsister, 3 clan elders, 2 witnesses she didn't recognize from the original body's memories, hired, she suspected, from the professional quality of their emotional flatness. Elder Mao was there too, the cold, calculating woman from the border settlement, standing slightly apart from the main delegation, radiating the specific satisfaction of someone who had been promised something in exchange for testimony. Thorough, she thought. They've been thorough. The senior official read the petition aloud. The cursed bloodline accusation, the fraud claim, the suggestion that her presence in the military compound had attracted hostile forces. Each charge landing in the chamber's emotional landscape with a specific ripple. Some officials nodding slightly, some resistant, all of them listening. The accused may respond, the senior official said. Lian Yue turned her face toward him and said, I'd like to begin with the witnesses. A pause. Procedure allows for opening statement first. I waive the opening statement, she said. I'd like to begin with the witnesses. She felt the chamber's surprise, a collective shift, the specific texture of people who had expected something and received something else. She had learned that surprise was useful. Surprised people revealed more than composed people. Very well, the senior official said slowly. The first witness, the hired witnesses last. I'm pleased, she said. I'd like to begin with Elder Mao of the Winding River Settlement. The surprise sharpened. She felt Elder Mao's signature spike. Cold calculation cracking briefly into something warmer and less controlled. Fear, small but genuine. Good, she thought. Elder Mao took the witness position and gave her testimony in the flat, confident tones of a woman who had prepared carefully. The blind girl had arrived at her settlement with no clan marking and suspicious knowledge, had spoken strangely, had left without permission, taking supplies. Is it true, Lian Yue said when the testimony concluded, that 4 days before I left your settlement, you agreed to sell me to lowland traders at a price of 40 show coins? Silence. That is, Elder Mao's composure recovered quickly. An exaggeration of a private. The conversation happened on the evening of the 4th day, Lian Yue said, in the back room of the settlement hall. The male voice in the conversation belongs to a trader named Wen Hu, who operates a lowland route between the border settlements and the dust market. The agreed price was 40 show coins, described as curiosity price for a 0-score female who had survived the Fang Forest alone. The chamber was very quiet. I'm not asking if you intended to sell me, Lian Yue continued. I'm asking if the conversation happened. She felt Elder Mao's signature, the calculation running fast, assessing whether denial was viable. She felt the exact moment the calculation concluded it wasn't. The conversation, Elder Mao said carefully, may have occurred. The chamber's emotional landscape shifted significantly. She felt the court official's neutrality warming toward her. The specific recalibration of people whose procedural fairness had just been given concrete evidence that the petitioning side was not operating in good faith. The stepsister testified next. Younger, more volatile. The bright-edged certainty of someone who had never been seriously challenged. She spoke about Lian Yue's cursed bloodline with the fluency of a prepared speech. The blindness was a manifestation. The 0 score was evidence. 3 unexplained deaths in the Asho Sparrow clan over the past year could be connected with the right framing to the cursed female's lingering influence even after her casting out. The 3 deaths you mentioned, Lian Yue said. Can you describe the circumstances? The stepsister described them, confidently, in detail. The 3rd death, Lian Yue said, Elder Shu. You said he died of a sudden illness in the 3rd month. That's correct. Elder Shu was responsible for reviewing clan inheritance records, Lian Yue said. He was the only person with regular access to the original bloodline documentation stored in the clan archive. She paused. Can you tell the court what those records would show about my bloodline if they were examined? The stepsister's signature cracked. Not visibly, she was composed, controlled, her face would have shown nothing, but the soul sense registered the fracture line running through her certainty like a crack through ice. Underneath the prepared confidence, panic. That's not relevant to... Elder Shu died 3 weeks after I was cast out, Lian Yue said. 2 weeks after Elder Shu, the clan archivist died. 1 week after the archivist, the secondary record keeper died. 3 people whose primary function was access to documentation. that would speak directly to the validity of a cursed bloodline claim. She let that sit. I'm not accusing anyone of anything. I'm asking the court to note the pattern. The chamber's emotional landscape had transformed entirely. The procedural neutrality was gone, replaced by the specific charge quality of a room that has realized it is watching something significant. The stepmother testified last. She was the most dangerous of the three. Lian Yue had known that from the first moment she felt her signature. Cold, controlled. So decades of practice at presenting exactly what she chose to present and nothing else. She gave her testimony flawlessly. The cursed bloodline, the harm done to the clan, the fraud perpetrated on the military compound. She was credible and measured and completely convincing. You have a document, Lian Yue said when she finished, a bloodline assessment from the Ash Sparrow clan record. You submitted it as evidence with the petition. That's correct, the stepmother said. It was prepared by Clan Scribe Wen in the second month of this year. Yes, Clan Scribe Wen received payment of 200 show coins from the Lan household treasury in the first month of this year, Lian Yue said, 1 month before the document was prepared. She turned her face toward the court officials. I request that Clan Scribe Wen be summoned to verify the document's authenticity under oath. The stepmother's signature shattered, not cracked, shattered. The cold control coming apart all at once, replaced by something hot and desperate that she was containing with everything she had. That payment was for household services. 200 show coins for household services, Lian Yue said quietly, to a clan scribe who had never previously worked for the Lan household and has not worked for them since. The silence that followed had a quality she had never felt in a room before. She felt it when the emperor spoke. She had known he was present, had felt his signature from the moment she entered, a layered and ancient weight unlike anyone else in the chamber. And complex with decades of authority and the particular loneliness of absolute power, he had been silent through the entire proceeding, watching. A blind girl, he said, and his voice filled the chamber without effort, just saw more than my entire council. The words landed in the chamber's emotional landscape like a stone in still water, ripples moving outward in every direction. The petition is dismissed, he said. The court will investigate the circumstances of the 3 deaths in the Ash Sparrow clan. The Lan household finances will be audited. A pause. And someone will explain to me how a 0-score cast-out female knows more about the activities of a court-level operative than my intelligence division. The third official from the center, the one whose signature she had been tracking when went very still. His name is Court Advisor Peng, Lian Yue said clearly into the silence. He commissioned the legal documentation for the petition. He has been funding the Stoneback clan's political expansion for 3 years in exchange for their support in removing military-adjacent personnel who are not under his influence. She paused. I'm happy to provide the details. The chamber erupted. She stood in the center of it. The noise, the movement, the hundreds of emotional signatures all firing at once, and breathed slowly, and then she felt them, 4 signatures moving through the chamber from 4 different directions, converging on her position with the specific purposefulness of people who had decided simultaneously and independently on the same action. Zhao Li reached her first. She felt him step to her right and stop, not touching her, so not speaking, just present. The lockdown military precision, and underneath it the protectiveness, fully open now, no longer contained. Shen Yu appeared on her left, the warmth and the sharp intelligence both present, both genuine, the performance entirely absent. Well, he said quietly, that was the most extraordinary thing I've ever witnessed. Ruizan stepped forward slightly ahead. Facing the chamber, she realized, facing the crowd. The deep calm turned outward like a shield, and at her back, as he had always been, as he apparently always would be, she felt Kale's signature settle into place. The natural stillness, the watchfulness, the involuntary thread of feeling that he had never successfully suppressed and had apparently stopped trying to. The senior court official looked at the 4 generals surrounding a blind girl in the center of the imperial chamber. The first general, She is under my protection, Zhao Li said. And mine, Shen Yu said. And mine, Rui Shan said from behind her, quiet and absolute. Mine. The Emperor looked at the four generals surrounding the blind girl who had just dismantled a court conspiracy with nothing but truth. Someone, he said slowly, bring me her bloodline documentation, the real one. The bloodline documentation took 3 days to retrieve, not because it was difficult to find. The Emperor's archivists were efficient, thorough, and motivated by the specific urgency of an imperial directive issued in a tone that did not invite delay. It took 3 days because the original records had been deliberately buried, cross-filed under an obscure clan registry notation, stored in the secondary archive rather than the primary, tagged with a clerical error that ensured any casual search would return nothing. Someone had worked very hard to make sure these records stayed hidden. Court advisor Peng, it emerged during his 3-day interrogation, had been working on behalf of interests that went significantly deeper than anyone had initially estimated. The Stoneback clan connection was real. The petition against Lian Yue was real, but underneath both of those, running back 11 years, was a systematic effort to suppress documentation related to a specific bloodline, hers. She was sitting in her room on the 3rd morning, turning the tiger lily packet over in her fingers, a habit she had developed the way she developed all her habits, icky without noticing until it was established, when Zhao Liye came to her door. He knocked. He had started knocking 2 days ago. She had noticed without commenting on it. They found the records, he said. She set down the packet, and... A pause. The locked-down surface was in place, but the protectiveness underneath it had a different quality today. Something that felt almost like uncertainty, which on Zhao Li was so rare, she had to read it twice to be sure. You should hear it from the Emperor, he said. The imperial audience chamber was smaller than the court, intimate by imperial standards, which meant it was merely large rather than overwhelming. The emotional landscape was quieter, too. The Emperor, 4 attendants, and the particular weight of a man who had spent 50 years making decisions that shaped millions of lives and had learned to carry that weight without showing the shape of it. She stood before him, alone. The 4 generals were present. She could feel them arranged behind her, 4 distinct signatures that she could now read with the ease of long familiarity, the way you knew the voices of people you loved without needing to see their faces. Loved, she thought, and filed the word away to examine later. Lian Yue, the Emperor said. His voice in a small room was different from his voice in the court chamber, less architectural, more personal. Do you know the name Lian, Sovereign? She went very still. The original body's memories stirred. Not the vague impressions she usually got, but something sharper, a name spoken in whispers. A story told in pieces that didn't quite connect. A bloodline that had been... powerful, ancient, something that had ended before the original girl was born, or so everyone had believed. It's a bloodline name, she said carefully. It is, the Emperor said, the oldest recorded bloodline in the Beast Empire, pre-imperial. The Lian sovereign line was believed to have died out 3 generations ago. The last recorded holder died without issue, and the bloodline was formally closed in the imperial registry. A pause. The records we retrieved tell a different story. She waited. The last holder did not die without issue, the Emperor said. She had a daughter. The daughter was hidden. The political circumstances at the time made the child's existence dangerous. The daughter grew up under a different name in a minor clan, deliberately kept small and invisible. Another pause. That daughter had a daughter. And that daughter had a daughter. The chamber was very quiet. You, the Emperor said simply, are the Lian sovereign line, direct descent, unbroken. She stood in the silence and let it land. The 0 score, the blindness, the casting out, the 4 days of cleaning floors in Elder Mao's settlement, the border and the cold and the blood on her hands when she wrapped a stranger's wound in the dark. The original girl who had been told her entire life that she was worthless. She was the oldest bloodline in the empire, Lian Yue thought, and nobody knew, and someone worked very hard to make sure nobody ever found out. The suppression of the records, she said. Her voice came out steady. She was proud of that. Peng didn't do that alone. No, the Emperor said. He didn't. The investigation is ongoing. A brief pause. What I can tell you today is that the Imperial Court formally recognizes the Lian sovereign bloodline as restored, with all associated status, rights, and imperial protections. She nodded slowly. There is also the matter of the Ash Sparrow clan, he continued. The formal charges regarding Elder Shu and the two archivists have been filed. The Lan household assets have been frozen pending audit. The clan elder who authorized your casting out has been summoned to the capital. Thank you, she said. Don't thank me, the Emperor said, and she felt something in his signature. Not quite amusement, something more layered. You did this. I simply had the authority to make it official. The system panel opened that evening. She was alone in her room, genuinely alone for the first time in days, the compound quiet around her, the 4 signatures she had learned to read like her own heartbeat settled in their various corners of the building. She sat on the edge of her bed and felt the panel appear in the center of her mind like a window opening. Soul sense. Evolution-triggered condition met. True bonds formed with 4 compatible souls, condition met. Truth spoken without compromise in the seat of imperial power, condition met. Identity fully acknowledged, bloodline restored, soul sense. Tier 4 unlocked, truth anchoring, full activation. When a bond of genuine love exists between host and another soul, host may choose to experience the world through that person's senses, sight, sound, and all perception, and for as long as the bond is maintained and both parties consent. This is not borrowing eyes. This is the natural consequence of a connection so complete that the boundary between self and other becomes, briefly, permeable. Note: the ability requires genuine love. It cannot be faked, forced, or performed into existence. It will only work if the feeling is real. Welcome home, Lian Yue. She sat with the panel for a long time after it closed. Through the eyes of the one she chooses, she thought about 4 signatures, 4 completely different architectures of feeling. All of them real, all of them sincere, all of them pointing toward her with the specific quality of something that had not been planned and could not be undone. She got up, walked to the door, opened it. Coyle was in the corridor. Of course he was. I need to ask you something, she said, the natural stillness, the watchfulness, the involuntary thread, and present as always, unguarded as always, the one thing about him that his control had never successfully covered. Ask, he said. I have a new ability, she said carefully. It allows me to see through the eyes of someone I have a genuine bond with, if they consent, she paused. I've never seen this world. I've built it entirely from sound and touch and soul sense. I know what it feels like. I don't know what it looks like. The silence that followed was the most charged silence she had experienced since arriving in this world. You're asking me, he said. I'm asking if you're willing, she said. You don't have to. Yes, he said, no hesitation. The word came out before she finished the sentence. She felt the involuntary thread in his signature bloom, fully, completely, no suppression this time. Just present, just real. She reached out her hand in the dark. His hand found hers. Large, careful, the roughness of someone who had spent a lifetime in combat gentled into something deliberate. And the darkness broke. It was disorienting at first. A completely new sense arriving fully formed, the world suddenly present in a way she had no framework for. Colors she had no names for because she had never needed names for them. Depth and distance, and the particular way light moved through the compound's stone corridors in the early evening. She gripped his hand tighter. Okay, he said. His voice for the first time came with a face. She could see the side of his jaw, the line of his shoulder, the corridor stretching ahead of them. Because she was seeing through his eyes, and his eyes were looking forward, giving her the world. Yes, she said, keep looking forward. He kept looking forward. She looked with him. The compound was gray stone and warm lamplight, and the particular beauty of a place that had been built for function, but had accumulated over decades, the unintentional beauty of things that are cared for. She saw the corridor where she had walked 100 times and learned it with her feet. She saw the eastern window she sat beside every afternoon and felt the sun from. She saw the training ground, and the sky above it, the Beast Empire's sky, wide and deep, and a color she had no word for, that sat between blue and something darker. "It's beautiful," she said quietly, and she felt him, through the hand holding hers and through the soul sense both, feel something at that. Something warm and enormous and entirely involuntary. "Yes," he said. His voice was very quiet. "It is." The others came to find her, as they always did. Shen Yu appeared first, because Shen Yu always appeared first to anything significant, and stopped when he saw her standing in the corridor holding Kale's hand, with an expression on her face he had apparently not seen before. "Oh," he said. She turned toward his voice and saw him. Through Kyle's eyes she saw Shen Yu's face for the first time, the easy warmth of it, the Fox Clan sharpness in his eyes that was always present underneath the smile. "You can see me," Shen Yu said. He had read it in her face immediately. Of course he had. "Yes," she said. So something moved across his expression, complex, layered, the face matching the emotional signature she had learned to read over weeks. He smiled. The real one, not the performed one. She knew the difference now in both dimensions simultaneously. "Good," he said softly. "Now you can see that I am in fact the second most handsome man in the Empire." She laughed. Rui Zan and Zhao Lai found them moments later, drawn by the sound she suspected because both of their signatures moved toward laughter the way people move toward warmth. She saw Rui Zan's face, the gentle steadiness of it, the Tiger Clan patience in his eyes, the structural loneliness that was still present, but had something warm built alongside it now. She saw Zhao Li, harder to read in face than in signature, the controlled surface present even in his features. But his eyes, when they found her, were doing something she hadn't expected. Relieved, she thought. He's relieved. "The Emperor wants to schedule the formal recognition ceremony," Zhao Li said. Next week. "I'll be there," she said. "We'll be there," Shen Yu corrected. Zhao Li said nothing, which was his version of agreement. Rui Zan smiled, warm and quiet and genuine, and said nothing at all, which was his version of everything. 3 months later, the Ash Sparrow clan elder knelt in the imperial court and formally apologized to the Lian sovereign line. She felt his signature, shame, real and deep, the kind that had settled into the bone and would not be dislodged. She accepted the apology with the particular grace of someone who had processed their grief in advance and arrived at this moment already finished with it. As the Lan household was dissolved, her stepmother and stepsister were resettled in a minor clan territory on the outer border. Elder Mao's settlement lost its trading license for 2 years. Court advisor Peng's network unraveled over 4 months of investigation, 17 people in total. The Beast Empire's political landscape shifted in ways that would take years to fully settle. She watched none of it with her own eyes. She watched it through the eyes of 4 people who had decided, each in their own way and in their own time, that the most important thing they could do was stand beside a blind girl who had never needed them to fight her battles, only to let her know that when she turned around, someone would be there. See, on the evening of the formal recognition ceremony, she stood on the compound's eastern wall and felt the wind on her face and extended her soul sense to its full range, the capital spreading out below her in all its dense, complex, layered humanity, and thought about a girl who had woken up in the dark in a forest and decided not to die there. "You're thinking loudly," Shen Yu said from her left. "You can't hear thinking," she said. "I can hear your breathing change," he said. Same thing. She felt all 4 of them present, arranged around her with the unconscious geometry of people who had been doing this long enough that it had become instinct. Zhao Li to her right, Rui Zan slightly forward, Kale at her back, Shen Yu beside her, close enough that she could feel the warmth of him. She reached out her hand, not toward any one of them specifically, just out, into the dark that had been her constant companion since she arrived in this world. 4 hands moved, she felt it. The slight shift of 4 bodies, the 4 signatures, all carrying the same involuntary warmth, the same sincere and unplanned and irreversible feeling. She chose the one that reached her first. She always chose the one that reached her first. I never needed eyes, she said quietly to the Capitol spread below her, and the sky above it, and the 4 people who had become, without any of them fully deciding it, the architecture of her world, to see who truly belonged beside me.